Hey guys, thanks for joining me back. This is Darren with Solstice Meadery. We're going to be going ahead and racking our spiced pear. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I had already taken the pears out of this particular bucket from the primary fermentation. It hasn't been bubbling for days and days now, so we're going to go ahead and get it off of those lees. This should be at the bottom. We're going to get it into a nice clean bucket, and then we're going to add some pears that I had frozen and have been defrosting for a while now. They're not exactly completely defrosted yet, but that's fine. We're going to take our masher, we're going to crush them puppies up. But first, let's go ahead and get our sensitization water ready. As soon as I grab my Star San, let's go ahead and get some of this in there. This is, if you're not familiar, this is a acid-based sanitizer. You simply open up one side, squeeze the bottle until it gets to the 1 ounce mark. Pour that in the water. Give it a quick swish. Now this is hot water straight out of the tap. Probably 120, 125 at most. Definitely if I left my hand in there for too long, it'd start to get a bit uncomfortable. For the pears, because of the banana last time, I talk about that here, I'm going to use a bag. We're going to sanitize that. We're going to take a gravity reading. So we're going to need to sanitize that, which also means we need our hydrometer sanitized, as well as a fresh airlock. There is our rest of our equipment, and of course our racking cane. Now the racking cane we're going to put in here and get it started, but then we're going to do a couple of things to make sure that it's fully clean on the inside of the tubing as well here in just a minute. What else am I going to need? I am going to need a clean hand towel just for drying and leaving items on as they come out of the bucket. Let's go ahead and do that real quick. We're going to just pull up some of that sanitized solution, and gently, instead of so erratically like I just did, we're just going to pump it through the tube. Make sure it gets through there completely. We're also going to make sure that our hydrometer is taken out of here quickly so that it does not get too warm and affect our reading. I'm going to get this tube with as few bubbles as I can out of it. Try to kind of halfway set that up on its end so we can drip dry. Keep the metal away from the hydrometer. It's glass. The masher is metal. They don't mix. Grab our bulb real quick. Leave those to dry as well. Go ahead and let this take a quick dip. Take our hand towel. I hope everybody likes the new setup. Got all of my equipment on my left so that I can get to it easier. I've got my bottles right over here. My cherry is right down here, 5 gallons of cherry. And then of course the capsicum, the piment, my Mead, and the banana down there. Sizer up front. We're going to be racking that one over to secondary as well here pretty quick. Just want to make sure we get sanitizer all the way on all sides of this. There we go. Now if anybody happens to notice the spot that's right down here in front, that is just from the bowl condensation that I had the pears in they were drying, or I'm sorry, they were thawing, sitting out and thawing, and condensation. That's all it is. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get this emptied, dry it out. Now the incredibly fun part with one of these is trying to get, I prefer to get those suds out of there. There we go, that's better. And then getting the tube to actually empty out is always fun. All right, let's get this puppy open and see what we got. Now you can tell just barely any kind of pressure on this lid, and the airlock is wanting to bubble, which means there's still plenty of carbon dioxide in there. Ooh, I can smell that pear. It smells really good. As gentle as possible. Smelling really good, guys. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get this here. And actually, you know what? I'm gonna introduce something that I haven't done before, but I kind of want to do from here on out. I went ahead and splurged and got a 5-pound CO2 tank with a manifold. Now what this allows me to do is, and what I'm going to do with it now, I'm going to pre-fill this bucket with CO2 gas. That way, as I rack from one to the other, this has a layer of CO2 on it already. And as I rack into here and it's swirling around in the bucket, it's going to have a layer of CO2 to protect it already. So that I don't have to worry about oxidization. I don't have to worry about any kind of oxygen getting into it at all during the racking process. Eventually, I'm going to use some different types of racking canes, and I'm actually going to use pressure transfer, which is essentially, it's typically on carboys instead of buckets, but what you do is you have a rack, a cane that goes all the way down to the bottom, and then just a spigot on top, and I would attach this hose to that, and it would force gas into the chamber at a certain pressure, thereby pushing the mead up through the racking cane and into the next vessel, which would also be filled with CO2, thereby having, there's no opening, there's no nothing, there's no oxygen getting in there whatsoever. Yes, I took a first world problem and threw a whole bunch of money at it to make it an even smaller problem than it already was to begin with. But, so not only can I do this with racking, I'm also going to be able to do this with my bottling. So I'm going to be able to take my bottles and just hold this over them for a few seconds, each one, before I put the bottle wand in there. And it's going to have a bit of CO2 in the bottom of it, so that when I press down and the mead starts to fill this bottle, there's going to be no oxidization either, all the way to include when I cap this puppy. So it's going to have a nice layer of CO2, and while it's not a huge problem, it really is not. I know that I want to get into the pressure transfer, which makes it faster, easier, cleaner. And I figured this was an easy way for me to go ahead and get into it. Plus, this also allows me, if I ever expand and maybe get a keg to do some sparkling meads, I can actually have sparkling mead on tap using this process. So it was kind of a threefer instead of a twofer, but it allows me to do some things now, and when I'm ready, it's going to allow me to go ahead and expand my operation and allow me to make sure that my bottles are completely safe with no oxygen, as well as my racking process. So, and we're going to go and do that now. What this requires is to make sure that this bottom tap is off, that this one is all the way to the negative, so I'm not expelling any gas right now, and simply give this a very small opening, and that will automatically pressurize this gauge to about 50 pounds, because that's the pressure that's inside the tank. And then I'm going to take this valve, which is going to adjust this one. Basically what it's doing is it's reducing the amount of pressure through a manifold. And I'm going to give this a bit of a turn. And you probably can't see it from there, but the gauge just moved, and I am now from 50 pounds, I am now down to a half a pound of pressure. Now, when I'm ready, I simply give this a little turn. And you can probably hear that. I'm just going to fill the bucket a little bit. Now what's that doing right now? It is dropping CO2 into that bucket, and it is pushing the oxygen out. That's it. Like I said, it's a just flushing the manifold. And that's it. So then make sure that is completely off, and make sure that this is twisted to off, and move it out of the way. That's it. Seems super simple, seems really easy. It's really not necessary. It's not, but I like to go that extra mile. Now, the reason I'm talking about doing pressure transfer is because of this right here. When you put a racking cane into a bucket or carboy, you do it as gentle as you can, of course. You don't want to disturb the leaves on the bottom. But here's the thing. When I start to pump this, see those little bitty bubbles? That is oxygen. And while it's not that much, I don't like it. I'll probably cut through this. You guys don't have to sit here and watch me hold this cane for the next 2-3 minutes. And that last little bit at the end is also a worry for some people, because again, it's pulling oxygen, the last dregs of the mead and oxygen from the bucket, and transferring it into the new container. So we've got it in there. What do we do next? We need to take a reading. We need to see where we finished at, so that after we put our fruit in, we're going to leave the fruit in for about 10 days or so, and then we're going to take another reading to see if it's changed, if the sugars have tried to do anything. Remember, when I'm going in this time, I want to squeeze it close, draw some mead up, a little ahead of myself. Now what's beautiful is there's very little bubbles in this, which is extremely nice. And it looks like this is finished at 0.98. Now the unfortunate part, I failed to get myself something to take a sample with. So I'm going to be back. There we go. And we're done. Magically appeared. Take our hydrometer out, drop it in, get it sanitized. We're going to very gently, and remember, this has CO2 in it, so I'm not going to be splashing, but I will gently down the spoon and gently down the side of the bucket. And remember, directly into CO2, so metal spoon in there, glass hydrometer comes out. Now for the tasting. So it fermented very dry, so I do not expect legs, and there are none. Legs are in a wine when there's so many sugars that it sticks to the glass, and as you do this and pull the wine back to the bottom, oftentimes in a sweet wine, red or white, doesn't matter, you'll see like thick bands of the wine still holding on to the glass and running down. Whether that's in a sheet or whether that's in actual rivulets, for lack of a better word, this has none, and it shouldn't. It should be very dry. This should have some definite peach flavor with some allspice and some nutmeg. Okay, so upon first smell, definitely has that alcohol smell, that hot smell. I can smell the spices though, they smell really, really great. So my guess is this is going to taste really young, and it's going to need plenty of time to age. So let's find out. Okay, so that has very light peach flavor, peach note. I'm sorry, pear note, peach. Very light pear note to it. Has a very dry, like you can feel the tannins from the skins and the fruit, but that very dry, astringent feel, mouth feel. It's really good. The spice stays with you for a little bit after you finish the swallow, and it's a little the spices are adding, I believe, to the heat of the alcohol. Yeah, and I think it's going to mellow out over time, and we're going to just get some really nice pear note up front. There's only a ghost of a glimmer of honey flavor in this. So when I back sweeten, which I will, that'll come out as well. So it'll be a nice honey and pear mixture with a very light spice flavor. Should be really good. All right, let's get back to it. Now, these are still a little bit frozen. Some of them are still very frozen, and that's fine. They're going to loosen up as they get warmed up, and the alcohol is going to pull their flavors out. Now again, just like last time, we use a bit of twine. To tie this off. Don't want to tie it off too tight towards the fruit. I want to give them room to move around and let that alcohol get in between and do its thing. Single granny knot, and then fold over. Half square, I think is what it's called actually. And then a bow. Make it easy to get it out without using any kind of scissors or tools or whatever. I don't want to accidentally cut the bag when opening it and ruin it. There we go. Now to gently place those into the mead. Just like that. And a little bit of pear juice. Right on in. Our lid is already sanitized. We're going to make sure that for now it is away from us. The whole handle. We don't want a fiasco like that first time, do we? Now we will be giving this a shake and a swirl, a gentle one, to make sure that fruit gets moved around in there. Other than that, this is a done deal. We're going to go ahead and get an airlock in this. And while I'm doing that, don't forget, guys, I am now on Twitter, and I will be doing all of my impromptu meetings and telling folks where I'm at and if I have brews with me to share for tastings. I'm going to be announcing that on Twitter, so at Solstice Meadery, give us a follow. And if you thought this video was helpful, give us a like, give us a subscribe, share us with your friends. All the way up to the fill line. Now again, this will sit on the pears for about 10 days. We will be doing a bit of a shake and swirl, just like that. Not much, just a little bit, hands off. And that's it. I really appreciate you guys visiting with me. My next video is most likely going to be racking the sizer, and then I'm going to start going through. I do have a video. I promised that I had a poll. You can check that video here that had the poll on which brew you wanted me to do next. I believe it was blackberry something and something Swedish. So go check out that video and let me know what you'd like me to create next. And I'll also be going ahead and getting to back sweetening these brews back here that I made in the beginning, and we'll be looking at when we're going to be bottling them soon. So I really appreciate it. Like, subscribe, share the videos, guys. Remember, if you want to have a drink, drink like a warrior. Have some meat. Take care.